G'day gang, on today's episode we are reducing our danger to manifold and installing warning lights from our 1-gauge system. Cool, so you guys would have seen our 1-gauge install. So we've got our 1-gauge system in there, and we've got a oil pressure sensor, we've got a water temperature sensor, and a bunch of other sensors, but they're the two we're working with today. So when we had the box made, I asked Michael from 1-gauge if he could put in an extra output wire for high water temperature and low oil pressure. So what he's done is he's got 2 extra wires out of there that send out a 5-volt signal. We can adjust on our 1-gauge basically the thresholds of when it's too hot or when the oil pressure is too low, and when that threshold hits, it sends out a 5-volt signal through the wire. So what I've created here is a little housing that will clamp on our roll cage, and we've got oil pressure and water temp, and we've got the holes there where we will put our high intensity LED. Now, I actually planned on having red LEDs, but I'm an idiot and bought white LEDs. Still, it's a bright light that should get our attention. And also this little guy, which is a 5-volt buzzer, 85 decibel apparently. And on the inside of our housing, which you probably can't see, I've got a little indent there, and that buzzer will go there, and we've got some little vents where the sound can come out. Unfortunately, I snapped one of the vents. I haven't had time to print a new housing. We might do that later. And that's it. So we just need to run extend our wires up to the roll cage, but also what I want to do is put a silent switch on, because obviously when you start up the 1-gauge but the engine's not running, there's going to be no oil pressure and the thing will be yelling at me the whole time. So we've got a bunch of excess switches next to our start button, so I'm going to have one of them as a silent switch, and the earth for the 2 sensors will come down. I'll run the earth through there and then to the chassis, so I can silence the warning buzzers and it won't yell at me if I'm doing something with the 1-gauge without the engine running. Other than that, we're basically just going to have a nice audible and visual warning of if our car is in trouble, so hopefully I can pull over and not destroy this engine, because I can't afford a new engine right now. Anyway, let's get started. Right, so what we need in our housing, we have our housing here, and we've got our LEDs. These are already 12 volts, so they've got a resistor in there. So they're all happy 12 volt, and obviously red for positive, black for negative, which is great. These are our buzzers, and it's got a little symbol there saying positive, and these legs are different lengths. The long one is a positive. So we just need to make up some little looms. So I want to basically wire the positive and the positive together, and then run a cable down out so we can connect it up to our signal wire. And then I'm going to put both the negatives together. So make up some wires that go from the buzzer negative to the LED negative, and then they can all go to 1 negative because it's all just an earth. And then that 1 earth can come down, and that'll go through our silent switch and then off to the chassis. So the only wires we'll need is we'll need a signal wire for the oil, signal wire for the water, and then 1 earth going down. And that'll be the 3 wires that come out the back of our housing. So now it's just a bit of cutty, snippy, solder, heat shrinky time. Let's go. Cool, our little wiring loom is done. So what we've got there is our blue, which I think is, I can't remember what the color code is, but one will be water, one will be oil, doesn't really matter. And then that is just our earth lead. So very simple, just goes to the negatives on the buzzer, the negatives on the LED, and then we just got the positive feeds to go to both. Easy. Little pro tip, so I've still got the cable connected to the rolls because I don't know how long they need to be until they're in the car, so I'm going to leave them, measure them up, and then cut them to save myself some pain and suffering later. So we'll figure out the lengths, and then we just need to mount them into our housing. So the one thing I've got to do is, it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but on the inside here I've got some indents where those buzzers fit. They're not tight, so I do need to figure out a way to keep them in there. I was thinking probably just a little bit of hot glue or some silicone or something. So I'll figure that out, and then the LEDs just push in, but I need to figure out which LED is which, so I've got to figure out which cable's which, and then we can do it. So let's go and cut the lengths of cable in the car. Okie dokie, so my little housing is going to clip onto here, and I'm pretty stoked with how it fits. I'm trying to get some light on the subject here. Come on, light, sit there, that'll do. So I've made it just a little bit bigger, and it clips right on there, like that. How good is that? I can slide up and down, and now I've left on the side there's a little hole, and I can run a cable tie around it, and that'll stop it from moving. And what I can do as well is with the oil and the water is I can run a little paint pen in there too if I want, and fill it in with white or something so it's easier to see. Cool, let's measure up our cables. Cool beans, found a hot glue gun, and we're just gonna do put our buzzers in the housing and just a dab of glue to stop them moving. I found out our orange cable is our coolant, so I can put that into the water hole, that LED. It's good to go. I've made the holes just a tiny bit smaller than the LED, so hopefully they never rattle out. That's also perfect. Just put some hot glue just to stop those buzzers coming out. The LEDs are in. Oh god, light's terrible, sorry guys. And now we've just got this loom coming out, so we'll get our Tessa tape and we'll wrap this loom, and that'll go down through here and down to our switch, and the other wires will go off to our 1-gauge box. Here's our Tessa tape. We've also found a decent black cable tie that'll go through there and clamp it onto the cage. So now we just need to wrap our little loom. Cool, so this puppy's ready to put on. So we've got a cable tie, everything's all wrapped up. Clip it on. And we want it down nice and low. Here the taco, that's it. Ooh. I might run the cable through where the taco is, so I have to cut those wires and run them through. And then we just got our cable tie, stop it coming off. And that is it. Perfect. We'll test that in a minute. Cool, so we've run our wires down here into the back of our switches, and we've just got our switch here for our silence. I know they're gross little terminals, but it's only an earth anyway, and they're holding on. And then I've just done an earth lead into there with just a bolt onto the chassis. So we tuck all that in now. I've taken out the other two switches because I don't need them, and I'm going to put a label over the whole lot saying silence. And now we've got our leads here, which just have to run along our cable routing and down to our 1-gauge, solder them together, and we can test it. It's bloody hot today, and it's probably about 45 degrees in this shed, if not more, but because we're English, we're still drinking hot cups of tea in the garage. Because that's what Poms do. Okay, moment of truth. So we've run our wires under and down to our 1-gauge. I've just got to clean up the wires down there, but they're all in. So let's turn our ignition on and turn our 1-gauge on. There we go. I've set my thresholds down low, so basically my coolant temperature alarm should go off now because it's down low. Oh, cool, look at this. So it's red to say that it's not right on both. So, in theory, if I turn this on now, oh my god. Oil warning, water warning, and it's very loud. Holy crap. Well, that'll get my attention. That works. 85 decibels times 2. That's sick. So now if we go into our settings, sorry, I'll put the camera on a better angle. Terminals, fuel setup, and we've got thresholds. So coolant temperature high, let's put that up to 115. That's probably about where I want it to be actually. And then go back. So now that's not red, so that's showing it's okay. And if we turn on our thing, we should just have one warning. Perfect, we've just got our oil warning. Oh, which is still crazy loud. But that is just our oil, so obviously our temperature one's not going on because it's not too hot. That is sick. I'm not gonna start, I could test our oil one, but I don't want to start the car right now because I've got a bit open in the engine bay. But awesome, how good's that? So I might just run a paint pen or something in there just so we can see the letters a bit easier. But that's right in the line of sight. It's got a nice bright LED. Let's just put it on again. So that is super bright. And that buzzer is annoying as hell, which is exactly what I want it to be. So it gets my attention when out on track. Perfect. What a simple thing. And how cool is that? I don't want to harp on about the 1 gauge too much because, you know, it sounds all preachy, but I reckon that's a really cool setup to have an audible visual alarm to let us know that car is in trouble. Sick. So the next thing I want to do, we'll turn off our ignition and 1 gauge, is in our engine bay. If you remember when we put the 1 gauge in, I didn't quite finish off mounting the ambient air temperature sensor. So we've got a sensor in here which I just taped off, which is pretty gross. So what I have here, of course I 3D printed something. I made this beautiful little holder which I will drill a hole and mount there, and our sensor will just sit in it like that. It's got a little spot for a cable tie, and so it just means it's not resting on the resting on the wall or anything. It'll sit right in the middle there. And I found a little rubber grommet, so we'll drill that hole out to 8mm, I think that is, and run it through, and then just a blob of silicone just to seal it up, and that will be nice and neat. So we'll do that now. Alright, there's our little holder in. I've just put it through with some cap heads and some nuts with some spring washers on it so they won't come loose. And we've drilled out our hole here, so we just need to put our little rubber grommet in there. Hopefully that should go in without much fuss. We need to get a pointy screwdriver to get it in there all the way. There we go, we've got our temperature sensor in here, we've got a little grommet there to stop the cable being cut, and we've got our sensor being held there with cable tie, all nice. Just got to clean out the swarf and put our filter back on and we're good to go. There we go, all back together and done. Just because it's a cheap race car doesn't mean it has to be a crap race car. You can make things look good. Stick our lid back on, drop our pen down through the induction manifold, awesome. Spend the next hour trying to look for that. Let's screw our cap back on. And there we have it. We have our warning lights set up for our 1 gauge, so if anything happens with the car, we get danger in the manifold, know to pull over, and hopefully the buzzer and the lights will get our attention and we can pull over and save our little car and not have to put another engine in it. And we've got our air temp sensor mounted properly because that was annoying me. But we're good. Thanks for watching, guys. We've got some more videos coming up, some exciting stuff. But for now, I'll send you out with the dulcet tones of a warning siren.